Hi everyone, welcome back to OC Everywhere. Today we're back for episode 14 of Breeding British Birds. Coming up, we've got a check-in with the Canaries to see how their second and third round youngsters are doing. We've got some fantastic news with the Redpolls, and let's go and see how those mystery chicks are doing for us this week. The Canaries have been so consistent all season. From that first episode when we originally paired them up, they've bred like rabbits, or bred like the Canaries as we might say, because I've had to intervene very little, not really encourage them or push them, and they've just got straight to work. And that all came from a lot of conditioning that worked very well for me earlier in the year. Now, most of them have had their second round now, and the chicks are about a month old across the board. We've got various crossbred feeders here, we've got some new colours down below, we've got some frill canaries, and we've got some more crossbreds and some rasas. So we've got a real mix across the board of all different breeds of canary, and they've all been doing relatively well, which is great. Now, I haven't got enough weaning cages for 35 odd youngsters all at the same time, because I can't wean everything off at the same time and then they're winding the parents up. So what I've done is I've left them in with the parents maybe an extra week by comparison, just to make sure that they are all feeding themselves, and I'm now confident that they are self-sufficient. So all of those youngsters will be moving into the young bird room come this coming weekend. Now the thing is that we've also had some third round youngsters hatch, and that is one of the pairs of Rasa canaries. They had 5 eggs but only 2 of the chicks hatched. Doesn't surprise me too much, because at the time of the hen laying the eggs, they hadn't completely finished rearing the round prior, which was a couple of native finches that we'd had abandoned by various nests. So those 2 chicks have hatched. They're about 3 days old and they're looking well, but for the rest of them, I don't think I'll let most of them go for a third round. I feel that, especially like this particular hen here, she's gone for a third round, she's laid the eggs. I haven't set them because she'd started to drop feathers. And if you have a bird that's trying to wean chicks when it's molting, it's just going to stop rearing them completely, and then you're getting up with a nest of dead chicks, or she'll come off the eggs and they'll go cold. So I am going to take the nest pans out for a number of hens. For a couple of other hens, I am going to let them go that third round, because I do feel that they're in advanced enough condition to do so. But of course, I won't be forcing them to if they don't. Of course, like the frill canaries, they're in great condition still, and I think they'll go for that third round. But it's like perhaps the crossbred, they might not. I think they started a little bit earlier and therefore have come into a molt a little bit earlier than the rest of them. We've had really quite a good week with the Redpolls, and I say that with caution because it seems every time I've said that this season, we've had a disaster the following week. But things are starting to look up, and I've got very encouraging signs from the birds we're going to talk about today, which is why I want to say that we have actually had a good week. So this pair up here are rearing 2 chicks. However, we've had to remove the cockbird because about when the chicks hatched, about 2 days old, I'd seen him ragging the nest and pulling at the nest. And I just thought, it's a recipe for disaster. He's going to pull at the nest, it's going to fling the nest pan, and the chicks will go flying. So I've removed him, he's going to fly elsewhere, and the hen is rearing them on her own, and she's doing an excellent job. I can't fault her. So I'm really pleased with those 2. They're now about 10 days old. I rung them a few days ago, and they're looking really good so far. For this pair, well, this pair, we basically had them build up in the 3rd week of the breeding season. But it wasn't until about 3 weeks ago she actually laid some eggs. So about 8 weeks later after building that nest. So those chicks have now hatched and they're about 4 days old. The parents are doing a great job once again. They're getting pinkies, they're getting buffaloes, and they're getting some egg food and some germinated seed as well. That's being pumped into the chicks, and for first time parents, I really can't complain so far. So I'm really pleased with the job that they're doing. We've got a pair down here, a normal cockbird to a cobalt hen. We've had 1 youngster off these guys already that's in the young bird room, but they're on 4 eggs, all of which are full. Now, I'm not too sure when that hen began sitting, because she laid 4 eggs, didn't seem to sit for a day or 2. And then anyway, I've candled them and they're all full. So great news there. I just don't know when they're due, but it'll be probably sometime next week, sort of later next week, I would have thought. So they're doing really well, and I'm hoping we might get something off them before the end of the season. And some very good news. If you remember, we changed a couple of pairs around a few weeks ago. We moved them to different cages. Well, it was this cage here that we moved a pair of Redpolls to, which were in one of the top cages. We put them over here, and they've clicked, finally. 14 weeks into the breeding season, they've clicked. So I had these off a good friend of mine. He brought them over from one of the best breeders in Europe. So massive thank you to him. He knows who he is. And they've gone to nest. So I saw the hen picking up material after what I thought she was just not going to do anything this breeding season. I popped a load of material in for her after seeing she was showing interest, and 24 hours after doing that, she'd built a full nest and she's laid the second egg today. So I'm really hopeful that with that pair, it's a very good quality pair of birds. We might get something off them before the end of the season, so keep your fingers crossed. So we've still got those two mystery chicks that we looked at in last week's episode. They're in that little nest pan there, and they're doing fantastic. They're about a week old now. I rung them 2 days ago. The mother is rearing them very well. I've seen a male greenfinch feeding them, the other female greenfinch, and the Norwich Canary. So they're being reared by 4 different birds, so they're never hungry, as you can imagine. They're doing a great job. I don't know what they are yet. We know their mum's a greenfinch. We don't know what the dad is. I'm not really sure at this moment in time. I still think it's too early. So it might be in a week or so's time when we start to get a bit more of an idea. But I think once they've jumped the nest and they've started to properly fill out, we'll have a bit more of an idea. We've had quite a below par season this year with the greenfinches. Generally, I've done all right with them. I've bred probably an average of 5 youngsters per pair, but this season I've had 6 pairs and that's just not been the case. I've currently got 10 youngsters weaned away. They're all in the first flight. Now, ideally you don't want greenies in large groups because of night fright and coccidiosis and stuff like that, so I'll usually have them in groups to 5 or 6 when I'm molting them and their chicks. However, they were starting to put on a lot of weight because they were in cages that, quite frankly, aren't as big as a flight as you would expect. They were eating a lot of food and not doing an awful lot of exercise, so we're getting quite fat. So I thought I'll pop them out in the flight, get them some good muscle development, and just try and keep a bit of weight off them, especially while it's warm in the summer. But for the rest of them, they're all doing okay. We've got a pair in flight 2. Now, this hen is sat on 3 full eggs and has been for about a week now. However, she started to molt. I've noticed a couple of feathers on the flight floor. She started to lose a couple of feathers on her chest and on her head, which means that if those chicks do hatch successfully, she might not rear them, or she's unlikely to rear them if she's then fully in the molt. So I'm going to take those 3 eggs and I'm going to put them under a canary in the bird room, because I know these certain canaries are in good enough condition that they'll be able to go for that 3rd round, and they'll be having some greenies as their 3rd round. For some other pairs, they're not really showing interest. They're carrying a bit of material but not showing any interest to build. So I think that's probably the season over for those 2 pairs. And then the pair at the back. Now, the pair in flight 5 have been our most successful or prolific pair. They've done relatively well this season, rearing their own youngsters and good numbers as well. However, I thought I'd lost the hen the other day. I couldn't see her, and I hadn't seen her for about 3 days. She wasn't on the floor because I could see that, and I couldn't really see her on the nest site at the back or the front. And I was questioning whether she'd escaped, which would be very unlikely based on having a double door system and all the security measures I have in place. So I went into the flight and found this. So this is a little nest that she's built on top of the actual nest site behind some of the Christmas tree, and I think there's 4 or 5 eggs in there now. So she's not even properly sat those yet. I don't think. She might have sat from the 2nd egg, but there was a number of eggs in the nest and she's absolutely fine. So we're going to have some greenies due in about 10 days or so now, I believe, which would be nice as a little end to the season with the European greenies. As I've mentioned a couple of times today, some of the birds have begun to molt, and generally all of those birds that have started to molt have been current year birds, which are 2022 bred birds. So young heads or what that have just had their first breeding season. So that's some of the bramble finches, they've started to molt. A number of the cock mulin pair birds and hybrid pairs, even some of them. So we won't be breeding any more of those this season, and a couple of canaries that I bred last year as well have begun to molt now. So I won't be setting any more eggs past next week, and that will also is decided on whether the parents are in good enough condition or not to go for that further round. Some of the birds I will be setting eggs of is that the twites have started to rebuild, and I'm willing to let them go down because I could really do with breeding some this season. But from everything else, pretty much, even the Redpolls, I will set their eggs if they're laying. It's the end of the season. And I've also had a little change about. I've put some new drinkers on. I have a couple of sets of drinkers that I rotate. Each week they'll get a new set of drinkers on while the others are being sterilised and cleaned, and of course fresh water each day. So I've currently got some blue drinkers on here for algae proofing. It just stops the wavelengths of light going through that grow the algae. And I've popped vitamins in the water for everything, so if they start to molt, they've got the vitamins there, so it means less stressful, and they've got everything there they need to molt and replenish all their feathers. Anyway, if you have enjoyed today's video, please make sure to subscribe down below so you don't miss any more future content from OC Avery. If you've enjoyed it, do smash a like on it as well. That would be very much appreciated. And make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook for daily updates and behind the scenes footage of all of our birds. Now, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.